I'm Bob Berkowitz, and this is Naked New York. Laura Shanley is the mother of 4 children. All of them were born at home without medical assistance. She believes that doctors, nurses, and hospitals cause more problems than they cure when it comes to childbirth. When Maura Item, her partner of many years, David, is able to lactate. Laura's book is called Unassisted Childbirth. Glad you're here, Laura. Welcome. Give me more information about this. You made a decision, you and your partner, that you were not going to go to the hospital for the birth of your first child.
Right. Well, he had been reading books about how the mind affects the body. And he had read a book by Grantley Dick-Reed, who was an English physician, who talked about the fight-flight response. And basically what happens in birth is that when a woman is afraid in labor, which most women are, they trigger the fight-flight response. So this is a protective mechanism. If you were in the wild and you're about to be attacked, you wouldn't want to give birth. So the fear, if you're afraid, it signals the body to stop the flow of blood and oxygen to, like, the face, which is why you turn white when you're afraid. It stops the flow of blood to the sexual organs, which is why it's hard to have sex when you're afraid. If you're tense, blood just doesn't go there.
Right.
So, and it sends the blood and oxygen into the arms and legs, so you can fight this danger or run from it. So what happens to a frightened woman in labor is her uterus is literally white, and it doesn't have the fuel it needs, so it can't function properly. So childbirth becomes painful and difficult. So what this man, Grantley Dick-Reed, really focused on was helping women to eliminate the fear so that they didn't stand in their own way when they gave birth.
But what makes you think that a woman giving birth at home without medical assistance is going to be less afraid than if she went to the hospital and had birth there?
Well, there's another aspect that Grantley Dick-Reed doesn't bring in as much, but that I've found in researching childbirth for the past 25 years, and that's outside intervention. If you have people poking you, prodding you, testing you, drugging you, cutting you, that also gets in the way. Childbirth has been designed beautifully, and this, I guess it gets back to, you have to look at your spiritual beliefs. If you believe that mankind just appeared and there's no mind behind it, there's no consciousness, there's no intelligence, birth, and this is basically the way most doctors view birth, that the human body, and especially the female body, has been poorly designed. That's why 25% of women are cut open in childbirth. There's a 25% C-section rate.
Right.
The female body has been poorly designed. Well, to me, this doesn't make sense. I believe that there is an intelligence behind life, behind and within life. It is designed birth as beautifully as it is designed digestion, respiration. Why would, there is a consciousness that knows how to grow an egg and a sperm into a human being. Why would that consciousness not know how to get that human being out of a woman's body? Suddenly we need the men with their white coats and their drugs and their machinery to assist that process. Why? Why would that particular aspect of a human being's body not be properly designed? So what I believe is that it is properly designed, but there are 3 main things that get in the way. One is poverty, poor living conditions, lack of food. This is why, if you look in history, you might see a high infant and maternal mortality rate, because if you're starving, you're going to be unhealthy and you're not going to have an easy time with birth. But that doesn't mean that birth itself is inherently dangerous. If 100 years ago a woman in the city was overworked, underfed, if she was poor, if she was wealthy, she was corseted starting at about the age of 11. So by the time she was 14, her pelvis was literally deformed. And also poor women might have rickets, deforming the pelvic bones. So there are reasons throughout history why women and children have died. If you look at healthy tribal women 100 years ago, anthropologists have said that they could observe a tribe for years, never see a death in childbirth, never see a complication. So, but now that the mindset today is that birth is inherently dangerous and painful. And so this is how most doctors approach it. They're expecting problems. They're there with their drugs and machinery. And it's basically, if you treated sex that way, if you said sex is this dangerous, painful process, and we're going to surround you with people, we're going to watch you while you have sex, we're going to be on hand so that if anything happens, we can be right there. And just the very act of somebody observing you is going to affect your body. If you look at, like, a man going into a fertility clinic, doctors will recognize that aspect of reproduction is sexual. They don't send a man into a little room with a medical book and tell him, now, if you can just understand physiologically what's happening to you and all the thousands of things that have to happen to you in order for you to have an orgasm and give us this sperm, then you'll be fine. They don't send him in there.
My friend is chomping at the bit here.
Sorry.
Oh,
Okay.
I just really need to interject. But even healthy women who are nourished and things like that have problems like a breech with the baby and things that they
Umbilical
do
cord
need
tied around the
medical,
neck.
or
Maybe,
umbilical cord. And women do still die with childbirth.
Well,
so if they're completely on their own and a breach or something like that happens, then they are at risk, isn't it?
Well,
then
that's because
necessary
that's a belief. And I know Bob has
But
studied
that
a
has
lot about the
happened.
mind.
And over in history, many women died in childbirth. Even like, you know, the wealthy aristocrats, that the women died in childbirth.
Yeah, well, like I said, first of all, so much of it has to do with attitude. If you are brought up in a culture that says sex is shameful, you're going to have a hard time spreading your legs to have sex. You're going to have a hard time spreading your legs to give birth. 100 years ago, you couldn't say the word leg in mixed company. There was a lot of shame in this culture. And so I write about fear, shame, and guilt, and that women are literally getting in their own way. If you are ashamed of your sexuality, your body will respond to your thoughts, and you will basically shut down labor. My second baby was a breech. He came out feet first, and I just stood. I was in hardly any pain at all, and my water broke, a little foot came out. He just kind of wiggled his toes, and I did nothing. I just stood there. I didn't interfere. And then another foot popped out, and then something inside me said the time was right, and I gave one sort of little push-pull and pulled him out. The umbilical cord is around the neck, usually about 25% of the time. It's not, it keeps it from coming out first. It's not a horrible thing. It's one of those many things that people say, oh my God, the cord around the neck. You know, it doesn't have to be an emergency. My last baby, the cord was around her neck, and I unwound it. So that's what people do.
What about the episiotomy? I mean, I assume like if you do it naturally, there is tearing sometimes. Then
Once in a while, but basically, you know, genitals are designed to expand. You wouldn't look at a man's penis and say, how could that thing possibly ever be any larger? You know, women's
Well, for some guys
genitals.
it
But
is.
if it tears, then isn't it better? I mean, because they stitch it back up in a hospital. Is it?
Yeah. I mean, basically, if you are relaxed, I mean, you know, your vagina is designed to expand, just like male genitals expand. So if you are relaxed, it will expand. And
But Lance, you give your best 30-second answer to this question. Your partner, David, lactated?
yeah, well, we had been reading about how the mind affects the body, and we had done really well with our births. So we had read in a book, a breastfeeding book, that men were physiologically capable of producing milk, and there were men throughout history who had. So he began saying belief suggestions that he would lactate just to see if he could.
And milk came out.
And yes, one breast
Didn't
swelled
breastfeed
up.
one of your kids,
no,
but
he
milk
didn't.
did come out.
One breast swelled up and milk began dripping out.
Okay.
And
I do believe the mind is incredibly powerful.
As do
over
I.
your body.
My
Right.
hypnosis
Right.
background, I know it is.
And
so
why
this
should
is
we put
interesting
limits
stuff.
on it? You know, people just say, well, there's only so much I can do.
Okay.
You know?
Laura, I appreciate you being here. Continued success with your work.
Yeah, thank you.
For more information regarding unassisted births, log on to Laura Shanley's website, freebirth.com. Here's a program note for you.